Morning, everyone. I'm Stacy Shank. I'm a community support specialist for the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services, and I'm here to talk to you about social work and human services. The first thing I want to ask you to do is just turn to the person next to you and talk to them about what you think of when you think of social work or human services. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Okay. So just that really quick thought, when I've done this in the past, a lot of the time what I hear from people when I ask them to tell me what they're thinking is that it is a person who goes into the homes of families and takes the kids out when there's problems. And they're just there basically to break up the family. So that's one thing that I've heard. And in just a minute, I'll talk to you more about that. But first, I just want to mention one, if you didn't turn to the person next to you and talk to them, social work, if you're going to go into social work or human services, it is a very people-oriented career field. So you do need to be able to talk to people and listen to people. And that's an important skill. The second is I know that turning and talking to people can be a little bit uncomfortable. The best way that we learn and that our clients learn is when we do get a little bit uncomfortable and things are unfamiliar to us. And when you do work in this field, that's something that you have to adjust to and realize you're going to be in uncomfortable situations. They're going to be in uncomfortable situations, but that is how you move forward and continue to advance. If you never try anything new, you're not going to get anywhere. So back to those myths versus facts. The first thing is, yes, there are social workers that their job involves going into the homes of families and looking to see how that family is functioning. They might have gotten a report that the kids are being neglected or abused or something like that. And the only reason that that child or those children would have to be moved from that family would be if it was an immediately unsafe situation. So the goal of that worker is always to keep the family intact if they can, and to reunify those kids with that family if they can. If the family members just decide to not make changes in their household, then sometimes those children do end up in other households and go for adoption and things like that. But just know that a social worker is more than just what people see on TV and in those movies. That also brings me to the fact that social work and human services is a wide, vast career field. So what I want you to know is that there's a lot of flexibility in it. It's not just the workers that work in the homes with the families. There is a lot of different locations that you can work at. You could work here in Nebraska, or you could go work in Australia. You could go work in Russia. You can be there anywhere because everybody needs help throughout the world. Um, as far as the different jobs that are out there, it depends on what you personally like to work with. So some people work in the schools with school children, and that's where they're comfortable. They help them with, maybe some family issues they're having. Maybe they just don't get along with the other kids at school. Could be some mental health issues. Could be they're struggling with their education. It could be a physical impairment, something like that. You can also work with people in hospital settings. And in the hospital setting, a lot of the time it's working with those patients because they've got some major thing that's happening in their life, and maybe they don't have income because they can't work right now. Their family needs them, but yet they're in the hospital. You have some people who leave the hospital who all of a sudden can't use their legs, or some other part of their body, so they have to find a new way to function. And of course, unfortunately, you do have people who pass away, and those families are impacted by that void that ends up there, and things like that too. Other places, you have social workers in government. I'm one of those workers, and my job is not only to help people apply for services and understand the resources that are out there, but also to watch for trends and things and bring those forward, so that like if a certain way that we're doing thing is actually creating a barrier for the clients to get services, we want to make sure we take care of that and not have that there anymore. I also get to do cool things like this. Normally, without COVID, I would be in person with you, and we'd be having some fun and doing some games and stuff like that too. It's a lot of flexibility in the position that I have, and I enjoy being able to travel because I get to go throughout all of Nebraska with the job that I have. The other thing is that if you don't like a certain area, let's say you work with criminals that are in jail and things like that, and you decide, this is not really my thing. Some of these guys just the way they talk, and they don't appreciate what I'm doing. So you decide to go work in the hospital setting. Well, if you get to the hospital setting and you're not real keen on being around the needles or people that are passing away and things like that, and sometimes it can be kind of a depressing thing, and you decide, hey, I want to go work with the kids in the school. That could be your thing. So that's where I'm talking about the flexibility. You can work anywhere in the world. You can do that, and the education piece of this and the income piece of this is also part of that flexibility. There's a lot of different ways to get into human services and social work, and we'll talk about those a little later. And the same with the income. It really varies on what you pick. And a lot of people think that social workers, another myth is that they don't make any money. That's not true, because it's what you choose. If you choose not to make a lot of money, that could be the case, but there's people that make plenty of money and pretty good money. So social work, the areas of expertise, there's more than this, but the general areas is a lot of people either go into like a child, family, or school social work setting. And another area would be kind of the healthcare, mental health, and substance abuse area. And then you've got some of those non-traditional tracks, such as conflict mediators, human resource counselors, labor relations specialists, and policy specialists. So those kind of people, some of them are dealing with the policies that I was mentioning in the settings, and others are dealing with maybe they work for the FBI and there's a hostage situation and they have to help mediate that conflict there. There's general counseling and therapy and things like that. The labor relations piece is where you have a dispute. You've got unions out there and the employers disagreeing with the workers. So sometimes the social workers help deal with those type of things too. Social work in itself, though, the definition is really you're going to help people meet their needs and deal with their problems through any ethical means possible. Social work is guided by some ethical principles, and we'll talk about those a little bit later too. But social work is more of a general practice versus like your doctor. A doctor, they focus on certain things. Like one might be a specialist in a heart, one might be a specialist in your feet, things like that. Social work's kind of the same way. Counseling is very specific in dealing with specific issues with people, and that's different than social work. Same with certain therapists. They focus on just the problem and the client. In social work, you're really working with those clients with a variety of things that they are ready to deal with, and you help them if they're not ready to figure out why they're not ready to deal with them. And the reason it becomes more of a general practice type thing is because we're looking at how the outside world also affects those people. A lot of those other professions I just mentioned are just focused on the person. So we're focused on not only the person, but the environment that's around them and how it's impacting them. And maybe it's the environment around them that we need to help make changes in, because it's an unfair environment, and it's doing things to not be fair to certain groups of people. Slavery was an example of that. You needed people that wanted to make a change. Same with voting. We're in voting season right now. Women weren't allowed to vote at one point. There was people who came through and changed that policy. So that's really what social work is about. And it's a very wide field. Qualities or traits that you should have if you're going to go into social work or human services is putting others before yourself. You still need to take care of yourself too, but generally your natural instinct is to take care of other people and then take care of yourself later. Being respectful and aware of all types of diversity. You're going to work with a wide variety of people, and they're going to have different cultures, different religions, different sexual orientations, a lot of different things that make them unique. And every person that you work with is unique. So you need to be able to recognize and work with that diversity. You need to be compassionate and encouraging. We are a strengths-based profession, so we want to focus on the strengths of the people and help them build that up in order to deal with those concerns and challenges that they're having. So our focus really is lifting them up. You need to be determined to help others, like to help others, and like to work with people. I mentioned this is a very people-oriented profession. You're working with people all the time. So if you are one who likes to break off and just be alone and you don't like to interact with people, yeah, this may not be your type of thing. But just know that you're going to work with people, maybe one-on-one, maybe in large groups, maybe in a community. Um, right now, we're having to do a lot of things with Zoom. I've learned a lot of new things with Zoom and WebEx and all those things. So a lot of flexibility to find ways to work with those people and meet them where they're at. You have to have an ability to truly listen to others. And what I mean by that is not only just sit there and listen to them, but you have to hear what their words are, so that if they tell you something such as, I'm having problems with going outside, I'm not really uh, good at meeting with people, and I'm scared to meet with people, and they talk about maybe there's a feeling that they have inside. But you need to be able to realize that it's more than them just not wanting to go outside. There's something bigger going on, and you need to reflect back to them. You told me you don't like to go outside and you have problems with people. It sounds like maybe something's happened, or you have something bothering you to where you don't want to do that. You want to be able to reflect that information back to them and help them explore why that is. Good communication and writing skills with social work and human services. No matter what part of the field you go in, there's documentation that needs to be done. If something happens, you may have to go to a court hearing, or your records have to be sent to the court. So you need to be able to know how to document correctly, and you need to be able to communicate with the people that you're working with too. So you want to make sure that you have clear communication. Good time management skills is also really important. There's a lot of things that you have coming at you at once. You're not just working usually on one task at a time. You're usually dealing with multiple tasks, and you have to be able to prioritize what's more important, just like you do in school right now. So the next part that I have is poverty versus middle class versus the wealthy. And in this, I just want you to take a minute, and I'm just going to read these to you. Think about if you know how to do this. Christmas tree decorating, checking account and balancing. You don't have any money, and you don't have any access to go get money, but you need a gift for your brother's birthday party. You really want to give him a basketball, but you have no way to get a basketball that you know of. Flying to Florida today to visit your friend. You have an access to a plane within your town. Washing dishes in the dishwasher. Do you know how to do that? Do you know how to change your own oil? Do you know how to read the stock market statistics to make trade decisions? In what languages do you speak? So the reason it says poverty versus middle class versus wealthy is, I'll just take the Christmas tree example really quick. A lot of you may know how to decorate a tree. You may know to go down and get that box of ornaments. You either cut down the tree, or you put together the artificial tree, or you go buy the tree at the lot and you bring it home. You know how to put it in the stand and put everything on it. But some people have never ever had a tree, and they don't have any decorations. So they haven't gotten to do a Christmas tree at all. Or maybe they put tinsel up on the wall and use paper decorations that the kids make, and that's their Christmas tree. On the flip side of that, you have other people who maybe they have multiple trees in their house, but they have decorators who have always done it for them, and they've grown up in wealth. So they never have learned how to put the little hook on the ornament. They don't know how to put that tree together. They don't have no clue. They actually don't even know where it's at. So that's just a simple way of thinking of the different groups. And, I have a friend, I don't have a plane, but I have a friend who lives about a mile away from me. And the airplane that they have is sitting at the airport just about 2 miles from me. And they can just hop over and run to Florida really quick and come back in a day, or come back by the next day. And it's nothing to them. And then languages that you speak. It's not just foreign languages that I'm talking about. When you're working with clients, you need to realize that people of different classes have different ways of talking. So just for an example, our applications that we have at the Department of Health and Human Services are usually written at more of a higher level, like maybe a 12th grade level. Well, there's a lot of people in the world that only read at the 5th or 6th grade level. So when they get those applications and they see all those big words in there, or the acronyms that are connected to the programs, they don't understand them. So we need to be very aware that we're talking or writing above them, and that they need somebody to help them through that application. Same with when we get into these agencies and we use those acronyms. If I say AABD to you, you're not going to know that's a program that we have for the age, blind, and disabled, because you haven't most of you probably haven't ever had to deal with that. So think about those languages. Make sure you're not talking above people and things like that. Really quick story. It's one that I always like to tell people. This is where there were some kids in the school and they kept coming to school and they were talking about how they were always hungry and things like that. So the teacher stopped and talked to them, found out that they don't have a fridge at the home. They get food from like the commodities and the food banks and things like that. But the milk and eggs and anything like that that they have, anything that needs refrigerated, they can't keep. So some of those products that they get from the commodities require milk and things. So they can't make everything that they're getting, and they don't have access. If they do get the milk, they have to use it, that same day, or it's going to go bad, for example. So the teachers, they decided to help the family out, put some money together, all got donations for this fridge. They bought them a fridge, helped them put it in the house, and even helped them fill it with food. Couple days later, all the kids all of a sudden didn't come to school for a couple of weeks, and they didn't know where they were at. We're really wondering. Nobody was at the house. They couldn't contact anybody. After 2 weeks, those kids came home or came back to the school, and the teachers are like, "Hey, where you been?" And the kids are like, "Oh, we went to see grandma. She was a couple states away. We got in the car and we drove there." So the teachers are wondering, "Hey, where'd that money come from?" They didn't ask the kids, but they really, really wondered. And they were kind of upset because we gathered all this money and now they just blew money and went to see grandma. Well, one of the teachers took the time to actually sit there and talk to one of the kids and ask a few more questions. And as she was talking to that child, she found out that grandma was very, very sick. And the reason the family had the money is they had sold the fridge. They used the food, but they had sold the fridge. Well, the teacher was mad at that at first. She's like, "Why would you sell the fridge?" And actually, I actually already said it. Grandma actually was on her deathbed. And if the family didn't get out there within that week, they weren't going to be able to say goodbye to grandma. So during that time, they sold the fridge in order to go out there because it was more important to them to see grandma and be able to say goodbye to her before she passed away. They were able to function without that fridge before. They could figure out a way to function now. The food helped them on the trip. They took it with them, put it in coolers and stuff like that. So they did make use of the food, but they sold the fridge in order to meet the needs at the time that were more important to them. So as you're working in social work, please make sure that you think about that. What does the client need? Not necessarily what you think they need, but what do they need? And always take the time to ask that extra question or two and find out the real situation before you get upset and judge things, because you do not want to judge clients. There's a variety of professional job duties and roles. I mentioned it's a wide array of things that you can do if you get into social work or human services. And even if you get into one position, all of these things that I have listed on this screen, on any given day, you may be asked to do. You may be asked to negotiate between a man and his wife, how they're going to handle the kids if they're getting that divorce. How are they going to work out who's going to get them and when? You may need to be an educator. You need to help. Maybe you have to teach somebody how to fill out that application. The goal of social work and human services is to get those people so they're self-sufficient and they can learn how to do these things for themselves and make decisions for themselves. So you want to arm them with the skills and the education that they need. So if I teach that person how to do that application instead of doing it for them, it helps them. You may be a case manager. You may have a client on a caseload or more than one client on a caseload, and you help them continue to move forward and learn about the programs, improve their education, improve the job that they have or the things that they have at home so that they can have the money that they need in order to meet those basic life necessities. You may be an advocate or a mobilizer. Maybe, again, I mentioned there's some people that there's just unfair policies and practices out there that really make it so that those people aren't allowed to do things that other people are. So you're going to get involved and help bring that forward. Those are just some examples. The other ones here on the screen you guys can see, but counseling, therapy, all of that stuff all involves social work, and it just depends on what profession and what area you're going into. We're going to watch this video real quick.
It's just, there's all this pressure, and sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail.
See, you're not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. If you would just...
Don't.
Try to see things my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can go on? We can work it out. We can work it out.
So this video, it's kind of a funny way of just showing that sometimes people, this is a couple where they're not agreeing, and then the guy knows, you know, he can plainly see basically the nose on her face or the nail in her head of what's going on, but she's not willing to accept what he has to say and actually focus on what the true problem is. So just know the reason I showed you that video is sometimes that's how you're working with clients. All they want you to do is listen. I mentioned listening is very important, and to understand them. So you may know or recognize these are really the issues, but they're only willing to focus on other pieces, or they just want to be heard. That's one of the challenges of social work and human services. Other challenges are there is challenging work environments. You know, you may be working in a disaster situation, kind of like the pandemic we're in right now. That's very taxing. Tornadoes, floods. We've done a lot of that lately, and those are real life environments. But there's also times where it's just a hostile environment of people that you're working with, and they're, you know, you may be in a like a residential treatment center or something like that, and they're just not open because they're forced to be there and they don't want to talk, or they don't want to deal with their situation. And then hours, it depends on the career field that you pick. There are jobs that are just 9 to 5 jobs. But there also are ones that are like 24 hours, or maybe you're out in the field. Like when I talk about the military, maybe there's some sort of social worker that's out in the field with them. So, you know, that's kind of a 24/7 type thing. So other things that are challenging is just confronting those stressful situations. People are in crisis when you're dealing with them. So sometimes it's hard to get them to focus, and that creates a stressful environment for everybody. And people don't always want help. I mentioned that. they may be court ordered to be there, or they, like I said, they're in treatment, they're in jail, things like that. So you have to be willing to work with them and walk with them to get them to where they can focus on the things they need to. At times it can be emotionally draining because you're dealing with people's problems all the time. So you need to be able to take care of yourself and do self-care. And without doing that self-care, then you could become burnout yourself. And that did happen to me. Excuse me. That did happen to me when I worked in the residential treatment centers in the shelter setting. Just that 24/7, I carried a beeper. I was answering calls, and I had a new family and little kids, and it just got to be too much. So I moved on. Like I said, it's flexible, so you can move from place to place. So I moved to the Department of Health and Human Services, and I was able to learn how to take care of myself better, and I wasn't burned out anymore. So just know that's something that can happen. And you have to be willing to ask for help. It's not only our clients that have to ask for help, and it's really hard to ask for help, but you need to be willing to talk to your coworkers. You know, there's some of us that have been in the field for a long time, so we can teach you things so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel or make the same mistakes that we did. Sometimes it's good for you to make those mistakes. I mentioned being uncomfortable at times. That's how you learn. But again, if you're struggling, or say you are getting emotionally drained, you need to be able to know how to ask for help. And you also need to know the resources in the community and in your agency, not only to help your clients, but to help you as well. We'll watch this video really quick too.
I think this is it. This is it. This is it, y'all. They are here. Oh, yes, you're here. Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna go in. Okay, yeah, cover your eyes. No, you can go ahead and come in here. Okay. Come on in. Uh-huh. Okay, y'all. Oh my gosh, my heart's beating so fast. What a miracle. Such a blessing. This is so amazing. All right. Say hey to everybody. They're here with you.
Hey everyone, I can't see you, but thank you, Lord. Thank you so much.
Nicole is sobbing. She said she's in this video. Oh my goodness. Oh, what a miracle. You know, I'm going to, you guys are like twins. Thank you for sharing this moment with Facebook, family, and friends. So amazing.
So I mentioned that the goal of the worker is always to try to reunify families and things like that. So in this case, it was 38 years later. And the other part about showing this video is just to show you that there are rewards to being a social worker or being in human services, and those feel good feelings just like you would feel if you were the worker that helped that family reunify. There's also other rewards, and usually there's a variety of things to do and people to work with from day to day. So that variety is something some people like to have when they're working in their setting, and just having that, you know, some people change jobs. In this case, your job changes every day. So that's pretty cool. We're very social creatures, so it's really cool to have those other coworkers around you that are very social. That makes it a nice environment to work in. And the ability again to move within the field and worldwide for what works for you and to advance your career, so you can actually move within the system and still be in the field and not always have to change your actual job. And then we do get to be true agents of change, helping people in society to overcome social injustices. So those are just some of the rewards that hopefully you get to see. What can I do now while I'm in high school? First, explore. Make sure you explore, you know, areas of interest, so you know what area you want to go into. You might take a psychology, economics, human development, sociology, or government class. Those are good things to explore. Make sure you involve yourself in the leadership opportunities in your school, maybe through government, athletics, the arts, other clubs, clubs outside of school, things like that. So be involved, be a leader, volunteer, and be involved in your community. That's the best way to learn about the resources, learn about the community, and learn about people. And research more about human services and social work so that you know what you're getting into and how to get there. Speaking of how to get there, paths to social work or human services, you can use your high school diploma to get like some entry level positions, and you can work up through the company that you're working for and gain experience in order to kind of work in that area. You can also use an associate's degree. Maybe you go over to, say, Northeast Community College here in Nebraska, and you get your gen eds and things like that, and you get some classes under your belt so that, again, you can go to a company and get hired. You may not be at the social worker level where you can be licensed, but at least you can work in that field. A bachelor's degree, usually, if you're going to do social work, human services is different, but if you're going to do social work, you can get a bachelor's degree with a bachelor's in social work. And again, you're not licensed, but you can work in the field and work with people. And that's where you're going to start really getting those a little bit higher paying jobs if you do that. If you decide to, you could do like psychology, criminal justice, sociology, stuff like that for your major instead of social work, and you can still work in the human services and social work field. The master's degree, which is something that I'm working on right now because I do want to be licensed, is a 2-year program. Usually, if you decide to do it part-time, it'll take a little longer. It might take 4 years. But that is how you get to where you can be licensed. And there's different fields and different areas that you can pick in. You might be clinical, you might be more of a general social worker, you might be in the medical field. It just depends on, and you might be in school. So just know there's different tracks to take, and you just have to research that and see what it is you want to do. And I've got some links at the end of this that'll help you do that. In order to be called a social worker in the state of Nebraska, you do need to have a license. Then you can also go on to that doctorate degree or that PhD. Again, the farther up you go, the more money you can make, the better job you can get. And with that license or the doctorate and the PhD, then you get to become more of an independent person, and you don't need somebody else to sign off on the stuff that you do or watch over you as much. I just want to note that you need to make sure that you are using accredited schools, and you also can use some employer programs to help get you to where you need to be with those services. How do I get there? And again, there's much flexibility to it. Use your employers. There's a lot of different programs. I'm using a program with my employer right now where they're paying all of my master's classes. You can also use job experience. If you work in the field for 5 to 10 years, that can count for some of your education when you're applying for other jobs. I mentioned those other degree fields that you could look at. Make sure you're doing internships in college, because that's important. And if you do those internships, it actually connects you. A practicum is like an internship, but it's more at the graduate level. So you want to make sure you do that as well. And I mentioned volunteer service and community service at the high school level. You want to continue to do that in college. That's where you're going to make those connections and find out what services you want to do and what part of those services you want to be a part of. Do I need to be licensed? The answer is it depends. The license isn't always required. It really depends on the state you're in and the job that you have. Some jobs in social services don't require a license and can be a gateway to becoming a licensed social worker. Nebraska does require a license to indicate yourself as a social worker. It's the law. Ways to pay for your education in high school: make sure you research the scholarship opportunities. I can't stress that enough. Those grant opportunities, there's always loans. And of course, complete the FAFSA, because that'll help you see what you can get. In college, it's those same type of opportunities, but there's also work study opportunities, or you could go get a job in the community at an agency that's in a human service field, and you can use that job to not only pay for your education, but get the experience at the same time. There are paid internships, so when you do get to the internship thing, make sure you notice which ones are paid and which are unpaid, and if you have a paid opportunity, it's wise to take that. You got loan forgiveness programs too, both for the undergraduate college and for like master's and above. If you go into this field and you do have a student loan, if you work in certain areas for a certain amount of time, some of the programs locally, nationally, and worldwide, you can find that where they'll pay for part of your loan that you have out. Pay scale information. I mentioned this. There's a wide variety of pay scales. You may work for a nonprofit or go on a mission trip, and it may be a case of where you don't get paid at all. Your payment really is just getting flown over there. They're taking care of your food, your housing, and stuff while you're over there. Some people choose to do that. There's people who are licensed and have a practice of their own. They're doing kind of therapy and things like that. They get control over their hours, and they may get paid pretty good depending on the clientele that they see. Also, where you live is important. Obviously, California and Hawaii, you get paid more, but it also costs a lot more to live there. So in California and Hawaii, like Hawaii Hawaii is $81,520 is the mean wage annually. In Nebraska, that same mean wage annually is between 66,540 and 67,580. So you see the difference, but it also costs a lot more to live in Hawaii. So just remember that. In Nebraska, basically the average, if you're thinking of per hour, is $16.96 an hour. But if you go to, say, Omaha, you'd make $19.77 an hour average. But again, it depends on where you're at. Entry level positions are usually, minimum wage, and it can go all the way up. A lot of the money is really where people are in administration, in like the government level. They make pretty good money. Will I have a job in the future? Currently, there's more than 700,000 social workers employed in the US. The baby boomer generation is getting ready to all be at least 65 or older. So that's going to really almost double the number of people that we have now at that age in the next 10 years. So you just want to remember that currently 75% of the social workers do work with those older adults in some capacity. So there's a huge percentage of people coming. Not only that, but you have all the soldiers and things coming back from overseas, and they need services too. So just know there's always going to be a demand, and this is not something that a computer can do, because there's you have to be able to critically think and make decisions. And it's based on how you observe things with the client. So just know that the expected employment of social workers is expected to grow faster than the average growth of many other professions right now. And they're expecting it to grow at least a rate of 19% and creating over 114,000 new jobs by 2022. So you will have a job. Important, I just want to mention, social work's guided by core social work values. Those are found in the National Social Worker Code of Ethics. There's a lot of those listed here, but basically you're just going to treat people the way they should be treated, be respectful, make sure you're being honest, and really looking out for the best interest of people. And you can explore that on that site. Reasons to consider social work: again, many flexible job and educational opportunities. The path to get there is very versatile. Social work leads to self-improvement. When you're helping people, usually it helps you too. It makes you think about your life, even though you don't realize it. Social worker changes people's lives, and social work changes the world. So that's a great thing to be a part of. You really are an agent of change. Websites to find more information are on this slide. We've got the National Association Social Workers Code of Ethics, socialworkerdegree.com, nebraska.gov, which is another place that's great, not only for licensure, but to find jobs and to find out about the services through Health and Human Services. I use the Bureau of Labor and Statistics for a lot of the statistics that are in the slides. And the last is the Grace Abbott School of Social Work. There's a lot of different schools, but that's the one here locally, really close to us in Nebraska. And it's a great program if you want to find out more information. So thank you for joining me for this presentation. If you have any further questions, please feel free to contact me. I've left my email address on this slide. Thank you.